I'm going to give you 5 tips to make sure that you can get yourself into the United States. If you have a visa or coming on ESTA or whatever you're coming in as, you need to make sure that you hear these 5 tips so you can get yourself into the United States with no issues. Hi, and thank you for joining me to talk U.S. immigration. If you're new to my channel, my name is Andrea Shev, and I'm a U.S. immigration attorney, and I've been doing this for over 20 years now. And I put together this YouTube channel to give you clear, concise, and easy to understand information about a ton of important U.S. immigration topics. Now, in this video, I'm going to take you through 5 of my pretty high up tips of getting you into the United States, making sure that when you get up to that border, when you're entering the US, you actually get in. So let's get into what are my 5 top tips of how to get you through customs and into the United States. Number 1 tip is make sure that you know your visa classification inside and out. There are lots of different visa classifications that you can enter the US on, but make sure that you know exactly what visa category you're coming in on and what you're allowed to do with that visa category. So if you're coming in as a visitor, know that you cannot work in the United States when you're a visitor. If you're coming in on an H-1B visa for a single employer, know that you cannot work for multiple employers and know exactly what employer you're working for, where is the office, and so on and so forth. Make sure that you know, is your visa temporary? Is your visa longer term? How long are you allowed to stay in the US? You have to know your visa category inside and out, so you do not say something to the officer that's going to make them doubt that you understand the parameters of your visa that you're entering on. Number 2, make sure that you have the documentation required on your entry organized meticulously, because you only have a few moments with that officer and you don't want to be scrambling through your bag to try to find what the officer is asking for. Know before you walk up to the officer what they're expecting to see. Besides your passport with your visa, they might need to see your approval notice, the 797 receipt that you have. They might want to see financial support. They might want to see an invitation letter. They might want to see many things, but know exactly what you are required to show them, and then a little bit more, so you have it available and easily accessible when you walk up to that window of the officer, because the last thing you want to do is stay up there longer than you have to. So have everything meticulously organized. The 3rd tip is make sure you have a plan. A lot of the times, the officers will ask you about your accommodations, your itinerary. They'll ask about how long you're staying, when is your return ticket. They'll ask you a lot of things. So make sure that you have a clear plan in your mind. And also, it's very organized if you have to show them an itinerary, your return ticket, and so on and so forth. So you're not stumbling over your words and very confused and agitated to make them think that maybe you're not really coming in under the auspices of what you're saying you're coming in for. So make sure you have a clear plan, you have an itinerary laid out, you know exactly what you're doing, exactly where you're staying, the address you're staying at, and so on and so forth, the company that you're working at, their address. Make sure you have all of that accessible, so when the officer asks you those questions, you have a clear, concise plan about what you're going to be doing in the US. The 4th tip I can give you is make sure that you have a round-trip ticket when you enter the country and you're coming in on a temporary visa. The last and the worst thing that you can do is come in on a temporary visa, which is most non-immigrant visas, with no round-trip ticket. Now, a lot of you out there are going to say, well, how am I supposed to buy a round-trip ticket if I'm supposed to be in the U.S. for 3 years? Well, in that case, you don't necessarily have to have a round-trip ticket. But I'm telling you, it's even better to have a round-trip ticket there that you have to change later than not have a round-trip ticket at all. So even if you get a ticket that's going to give you, take you back in a year from now, that's better sometimes than having only a one-way ticket on any type of non-immigrant visa. Now, hear me, because I know in other videos, people have gotten very nervous about buying a round-trip ticket. You don't have to have a round-trip ticket if you're coming in for a substantial period of time, like a 3-year visa, like an O for 3 years. But I'm telling you, it's always better to have a round-trip ticket for a shorter period just in case the officer wants to see it, and also just to show them that you're not going to be staying here indefinitely. You're going to go home for the holidays, maybe you're going to go home for a vacation or something. But if you don't have it, it's not the end of the world on some visas. But for a tourist visa, you better have a round-trip ticket. And the fifth and last tip I will give you is about the I-94. When you come into the United States, you are always given a I-94. Nowadays it's digital, and I'll put a link under this video of how to check your I-94. I have another video, another blog, you can see exactly how to do it. But it's important that you check your I-94. But more importantly than that, when you come for the border, and sometimes people have more than one type of visa in their passport, it's common, believe it or not, or they'll have an expired visa that didn't get canceled on accident, and then they'll have a new visa in their passport. Make sure you take responsibility to give that officer the proper visa. So I like to open it up when they say, may I have your passport? You open it up to the page that has the proper visa and say, I'm entering on an H-1B visa, or I'm entering on an O visa. Tell the officer, because when the officer inputs the information into the computer to generate your I-94, which will have the information of when you entered and when you are required to leave, which is one of the most critical documents that you need to have that access to that, because you need to know what date that officer put that you have to leave, because if you don't leave by that date, then you're going to be overstaying and have more problems. So make sure you talk to the officer and let them know what status you're entering in, and make sure they see the visa that that status is for, especially if you have more than one visa in your passport. And then once you enter the country, the second step is to double check your I-94 online to make sure the officer gave you the right status and for the right amount of time. I cannot tell you how many times an officer will make a mistake and give you either the wrong status or give you the wrong date you must leave. And there's ways to get that corrected. But if you don't check it, you're going to have an issue, because you're going to now be in the States either longer than you thought you were supposed to be here because you didn't check your I-94, or under the wrong status that you shouldn't even be here for. So make sure you check that status. Hit the link below and find out how to do that, and do that immediately after entering the country. But the only thing you can do to the officer at the border when you're there standing there to avoid that is you can help them out by making sure that it is clear the status you're entering in. Now, don't forget to look below for that free interview guide and checklist that I did for you. Don't miss it. It's free. You gotta click it and get it. And also, if any of you need help from me directly on preparing for any interviews that you're going to at US consulates, there's a link below this also for a consultation with me that you and I together, we can talk and walk through your issues or any questions that you have and prep you for that interview so you don't have any issues when you go to get that visa in your passport. Click right below. Both of them are below, the free guide and if you want a consultation with me. Thank you so much for joining me today. Now you have the 5 tips that you need, or I think you need, when you're entering the country with a visa or even on ESTA. Make sure you do these things so you have an easier way getting into the country without having problems with the Border Patrol. Everybody have a wonderful morning, afternoon, or night, wherever you are in the world. Thank you for joining me, and see you next time.